Welcome everybody. Welcome back to the Men of Warrior 22 show. I am Alex Bonilla, founder of the Mental Warrior 22 and Men of Warrior 22 Foundation. And I'm glad that you guys are here tonight, whether this is your first time tuning in or you've been with me since episode one. For anyone who's new, here's what this show is actually about. So, this is a place for veterans, it's a place for first responders, but it's a place for anyone who's carrying something heavy to feel a little less alone with it for an hour at least. Now, I'm not up here as somebody who's got it all figured out, handing down answers from a stage like I've never struggled a day in my life. As a veteran myself and riding the war inside, I did it simply because I needed to work through my own version of tonight's topic before I had any business talking to anybody else about theirs. I built the Mental Warrior 22 Foundation on one idea. And it's the same idea underneath what this show and what every show has been since the beginning. Nobody heals in isolation. We're stronger together. You don't get better by white knuckling it alone in a room at 3 o'clock in the morning, telling yourself that you're fine when you know you're clearly not. You get better in connection, sitting across from people who've actually been where you are, saying the true things to each other instead of the one polite thing. And that's what we're trying to build here. Not a performance, not a highlight reel, a place where the hard stuff can be said out loud, because most of us have spent way too long carrying it in silence, thinking that silence was the strong move. And it wasn't. It never was. My goal for every episode has been exactly the same. I want to give you something real instead of something that just sounds good printed on a coffee mug or a motivational poster at an office break room, right? I'd rather hand you one real true sentence than the 10 pretty ones that don't actually change anything about your day. And that's the deal I try to keep with you guys, with the audience, right? Week after week. So why break that tonight? So here's what we're getting into. Before I do, I want to welcome you guys, everyone who's tuning in. If you guys can, please highlight so your peoples and anyone else who might need this can see it. I appreciate it. Have them like, follow, share. Welcome again. So tonight's episode isn't about forgiveness, right? We've had that talk before, right? You probably heard forgiveness 100 times, right? Usually from someone who's never sat where you're probably sitting at tonight. Tonight is about something different. And I genuinely think it's going to land with most of you in a way that you either expected or probably didn't. So, whatever brought you guys here to the show tonight, whatever you're carrying into this hour, I think you're exactly where you need to be. So, let's get into it. I wonder how many people watching tonight have put their whole lives on pause without ever meaning to. I want you to think about that for a minute, because nobody decides that on purpose, right? Nobody wakes up one morning and says, today I'm going to freeze my entire life until somebody else finally does the right thing. This happens slowly, and it's a quiet one as well. And for those who have followed me, you'll hear me occasionally say death of 1,000 cuts, because all these things that happen, it's never one thing. It's in a slow way, right? That slowly starts to cut before you actually realize you're bleeding, right? It happens in the waiting itself, one day at a time, until you look up and you realize, damn, weeks, months, years have gone by. Years have gone by waiting for an apology that is not coming. No matter how many birthdays or holidays pass, you're waiting for a closure that you can't manufacture on your own. No matter how many times you rehearse that conversation on the road while you're driving or in the shower or just sitting having a cup of coffee, waiting for somebody to finally admit what they did to you out loud to your face. So it feels real and not just something that you've been carrying yourself in the dark. Waiting for justice, whatever that even means anymore, right? Waiting for justice from a system, a courtroom, a family, or a relationship that honestly was never built to hand it to you in the first place. But here's the part that nobody really says out loud. While you've been waiting, life just keeps going, right? While you've been waiting for all this and putting your life on hold, life has kept going without you. The calendar did not just stop for your grief. It doesn't check in with you first, right? The people around you kept living their lives. They kept growing, kept moving forward into new relationships and new seasons, while some part of you just stayed parked at the exact moment where everything went wrong. Now, I'm not telling you this to make you feel worse about where you're at right now. I'm telling you because I think some of you needed somebody to just say it out loud. So you'd stop feeling crazy for noticing it yourself, right? Alone at 2 o'clock in the morning, wondering why everyone else seems to have moved on, but you haven't. You seem to not be able to. You're not crazy for noticing that. You're stuck. And there's a difference between stuck and broken, because stuck can move, right? Broken people need to be fixed. Stuck people just need a reason to take the next step. Kind of like a car stuck in the mud. Sometimes you just need that good push. And that's what we're here for tonight. So I want you to think about, what has waiting actually cost you so far? What has waiting cost some of you? Right? And I don't mean this in some like philosophical way. I mean literally, what does it cost you? Because how many good nights of sleep has it cost some of you? Nicole, time. Absolutely. Time. Time is precious. Time is valuable. That's something you can't get back, right? The nights that you've lost sleep, the time, precious time, yes, right? How many conversations with people who actually love you right now in the present did you sit through like kind of just half in, half present? Because part of your mind is still stuck back there, right? Still trying to negotiate with somebody who isn't even in the room. How many opportunities did you let pass by because some part of you was still waiting to feel ready? And if you remember that, that's what we talked about last week, right? Ready isn't a feeling, but to feel ready, right? And readiness was never going to arrive as long as it depended on somebody else's next move. Michelle, cost my health for years. See, peace of mind, health, all these things are valuable. All these things. That's the price that we paid. And nobody sends you the invoice for this, right? So it's easy to pretend it isn't just stacking up, it isn't accumulating, but it is, right? Every single day that you spend waiting on somebody else's timeline is a day you don't get back. And that's true whether or not the thing you're waiting for ever shows up. So tonight isn't about the people who hurt you. No, it's not about going to spend this next hour or 50 minutes telling you to forgive them, to understand where they're coming from, or to sit down and write them a letter that you'll never actually send. right? The way some of these talks like to go. That's not what this show is about. And honestly, it's not me. I've had people tell me or ask me before why I don't just teach forgiveness at this stage, since that's what most people talk about, right? That's what most people expect from a night like this. But here's my honest answer. And forgiveness is a real thing. And for some of you, it might eventually be part of your path, and that's great. But I've seen too many people get stuck trying to force forgiveness before they were anywhere near ready for it, using it like a shortcut past doing the actual work, and it backfires every time. I want to give you tonight, or what I want to give you tonight doesn't require forgiveness. You can walk out of here at peace whether or not you ever forgive anybody for anything. Those are two separate roads. And tonight we're only walking on one of them. Tonight is about you and about a decision that belongs entirely to you. Whether or not anybody else ever earns it, apologizes for it, or even acknowledges any of it happened at all, it's about you finding peace without permission. That's where we're heading tonight. And we're doing this together, right? So, Deborah, so true. You can have all the money in the world, but the one thing you cannot buy is time. Once it's gone, it's gone. Absolutely. And the older we get, the more we realize we have more years behind us than we do ahead of us. So it's how we're going to utilize that time. So I want to start with a question. I don't think most of us ever actually let ourselves answer honestly, not even privately, maybe not even in our own heads. Who owns your peace right now, tonight, as you're sitting here listening to me talk? Who owns your peace right now? And I want you to sit with that for a second, because I mean that literally. Who owns your peace? This isn't a rhetorical warm-up like this, like not who do you wish owned it, like who actually does, based on how you've actually been living these last few months. Who owns your peace right now? Because some may be stuck in relationships and certain things where the person is just manipulating and just constantly ruining your time, ruining your peace of mind, keeping you up at night. So who owns your peace right now? Here's the test I use with myself. And I noticed that one says me, Michelle, me, Nicole, God. Here's the test. The same one I use sometimes with veterans I sit across from, people I talk to in it. And if your answer to when will I finally be okay depends on what somebody else does next, they still own it. I want you to listen to that for a second. If your answer to the question, or to when you say, when will I finally be okay, depends on what somebody else does next. I can't wait till he moves out the house, then I'll finally have peace. You just said it out loud. That person owns your peace. You're allowing them to own your peace, but you're waiting on their next move, right? Or waiting on a parent, or waiting. Listen, some people are waiting on kids. I can't wait till they leave the house, till they turn 18 or 2. Whatever it may be, they still own it. Not you, them. And I hear the versions of this constantly, different words, but the exact same shape underneath every single time that I hear it. I'll be okay once they apologize, right? How many of you are waiting for an apology? Or I'll move on once they finally admit what they did to me. I'll heal once they come back and actually explain themselves to my face, right? We had that episode a couple of months back. We talked about ghosting. And it wasn't about the person who ghosted you, more of what that action did to you, what it triggered, what it brought back. And a lot of us are constantly stuck waiting. Like, we don't allow ourselves the closure because we're waiting on an explanation. And I had this conversation recently where I said, if a snake bites you, you're not going to go look for the snake and ask the snake why it bit you. You're going to go get better. You're going to try to heal. People are the same way, right? You get stung once, there's no need for the explanation. That was the closure, right? So waiting for I'll be happy again once justice happens, once they finally get what's coming to them, every one of those sentences hands your piece over to somebody who, let's be honest with each other, like, they've already shown you who they're not equipped. Like, right? They're not equipped to hold it responsibly. They're not going to care. If they were the kind of person who was going to apologize, explain themselves, or come back and make it right, most of you guys wouldn't be sitting here tonight. We wouldn't be having this conversation, right? But a lot of people lack the emotional intelligence. And years can go by and you're still waiting on it. So underneath it all, the question is, what happens if none of that ever comes? What happens if you're waiting for justice that never comes? What happens if you're waiting for karma that never comes? What happens if you're waiting for someone to apologize? It never comes. How long are you going to wait, right? How long are you going to stay there waiting for that phone call, that email, that conversation? What if you never get the explanation? You feel that you're old. Then what happens to the rest of your life? And I don't want anyone watching this tonight to walk away thinking that this is about weakness or being naive or somehow failing to protect yourself properly. This isn't weakness. It's the opposite of that, right? I need you to hear that part clearly. We hand our peace over to other people because we got hurt. And hurt people go looking for the person who caused the hurt to also be the one who fixes it. That instinct, it makes complete sense on paper. It's the most logical if you think about it, right? The problem is that almost never actually works out that way in real life, right? Trying to find the person. And the sooner you can see that clearly without judgment towards yourself for having believed it this long, the sooner you can actually get your life back into your own hands where it belongs. Michelle, ouch. That goes to the conversation. Feeling like I need to move away from my narcissistic mother that lives next door. Right? What if she never moves? What if she never moves? Like, why wait for that to live your life in peace? Right? Think about how much of your energy has gone just this week alone, right? Toward somebody who isn't even in the room with you right now. It's not an accusation. It's not like, it's just math, right? And I think about most of us would be shocked if we actually added that up. How many times, right? Which is, people are living rent free in our heads. So I want you to do something. I want you to grab a piece of paper or in your head, right? I want you to finish this sentence honestly. I'll be okay when blank. Don't overthink it. I'll be okay when. And if you'd love to share that, please, I'd love to hear about it. I'll be okay when. An example can be, Michelle, what you just mentioned. I'll be okay when. Is this when your mom moves out? Or can we turn that around? I'll be okay when. But don't overthink it. I want you to just first answer that pops in your head. Now, whatever that answer was, I want you to look at it or just think about it. Is the blank that you filled something you control, or is it something everybody else has to do first? That's the whole test. That's it. Like, that's what you should do. That's your own test. One, I'll be okay when. And whatever that answer is, then you ask yourself, is that something that's within your control, or that's something you're waiting on somebody else to do first? I'll be okay when I stop giving people power over my emotions. Absolutely. You said it absolutely 100% correct. You said stay connected. Studies have shown that people who surround themselves with other people who encourage them and support them have greater sense of peace with themselves. Yes. Listen, you hang around with me long enough, I'm going to convince you can do whatever you say you want to do. Don't tell me you're going to be an astronaut. I'm going to convince you. That's just, why not? Why not? It costs nothing to support your friends or support people, or just be kind, right? So this is a quick tool if you want to practice it later, another day. Anytime you catch yourself starting the sentence with, I'll be okay when, finish it out loud. Look at yourself in the mirror and do it alone in the car, right? Nobody needs to be around you to hear it, right? But just saying it out loud and hearing that blank, you catch it faster than letting it stay vague, like in your head and not really thinking about it, right? So there was a point in my life where I thought I had the whole thing mapped out, right? I knew what my career was going to look like. I knew who was going to be standing next to me for it. I knew roughly how the next 10 years of my life were supposed to unfold, right? Because I did the planning, I put in the work. I figured that meant something, right? That had to be guaranteed. But then, the way it usually goes for most of us, right? None of that happened the way I had drawn it on paper. Everything goes to plan until that first shot is fired. So I spent a long time being angry about that. And not out loud, the kind of angry that everybody can see. It's the quiet kind, right? The kind that just sits underneath. Everything you do in colors, it's a little darker than it should be. So even the good days felt slightly off. They felt flat, like you're watching your own life through the glass instead of like living inside of it. And I kept waiting for life to kind of circle back around to make sense again, the way I was convinced it was supposed to eventually go if I maybe held down long enough, but it never did. And I want you to hear that part, because I think a lot of us in this audience tonight are waiting for the version of their life where everything finally clicks into place and makes sense looking back, where you get to say, yeah, that's why it happened. Some of you are going to get there. You're going to get that someday. Some of you, a lot of you may not. And I have to be honest about that instead of promising you something I can't guarantee. Right? I didn't get the clean explanation. I had to learn how to build an actual life without ever getting one. Right? Peace didn't come for me when my life finally made sense again. Peace came when I stopped demanding that it had to make sense before I allowed myself to move forward with it. The shift doesn't happen overnight. And that's another thing that we need to be honest about, right? Because again, I don't want you thinking this was like an aha moment. This was like, oh man, it just clicked one day. No, this was slow. It looked like showing up to work anyway on the days that my anger was loud. It looked like choosing to build something new. This show, the book, foundation, instead of staying stuck rebuilding the old plan that I had in my head over and over. It looked like small, boring decisions repeated for a long time until one day the anger wasn't running the show anymore, it wasn't controlling me. That's the shift that I want you to hear underneath the whole story, because it's really this entire segment comprised into one sentence. It's not that things got explained, it's that I stopped needing them to be explained in order for me to move forward with my own life, my own terms. So here's what I want you to carry out of this segment into the rest of tonight. You're allowed to stop auditing your life for an explanation that may never come. No matter how badly you want it, you're allowed to stop waiting for the person who broke something in you to be the same person who hands you the pieces back, to give you the pieces put together with a shiny bow on it. That was never how it was actually going to work. And some part of you has probably known that for a while now. Even if tonight is the first time you're saying it out loud, even just to yourself. I'll tell you something that I learned in that part of my life, something that surprised me at the time. Once I stopped waiting for the explanation, I actually had room again. Room to notice the things I stopped noticing. Room to actually be present with the people who were standing right in front of me, right? Instead of half-assing it, being checked out, still fighting a battle in my head with somebody who wasn't even there. Waiting takes up space. And most of us don't realize just how much space is taken until you finally put it down and feel how much lighter you are. That's not a small thing. That's most of what this is all about. Yes, I concur. I was in therapy and my therapist asked me a simple question and asked me just to answer with feelings, not logic. Here you go. Natasha, I can relate to that. Allow people to be exactly who they are. It's a lot easier than trying to control the outcome. Yeah. So let's talk about something that most of us in this room might do. And like, we may not say it out loud or name it out loud because it feels very private, right? Too embarrassing sometimes to admit to another human being. We keep negotiating with our past, right? We are replaying the conversations that already happened, that are already over, that ended a long time ago and aren't coming back for a rematch. Like, we just run them again in our heads, right? We keep repeating them, except this time we say the smarter thing, right? Or say the honest thing. Or somebody finally admits what actually happened between the two of you. So we build entire alternate versions of moments that ended years ago, sometimes decades. And some of us live inside those alternate versions more than we live in our actual present life. So, powerful story. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. It's not, listen, the past doesn't negotiate. It's not in the room with you two at the time. It's not with you at 2 a.m. when you're rerunning this argument for the umpteenth time, right? This month or this week, right? It doesn't respond to your best version of your comeback you never actually said out loud when it mattered, right? It doesn't care how many nights you've lost lying there, rebuilding that conversation, that the actual living person on the other end has probably not thought about in years. They went on with their life, right? Or maybe ever, maybe not once since it happened. And that's not me being mean or harsh about it, right? That's me trying to save you a few more of those nights because you've already lost enough time, already lost enough of that. So I'm going to take a quick pause for a moment so we can break for a commercial, pay the bills, but sit tight. We'll be right back. What you wear says something about who you are. At Mental Warrior 22, we don't just create apparel. We represent resilience, purpose, and the decision to keep moving forward. Wear the mindset, live the mission. Shop the Mental Warrior 22 collection today at mw22.org/shop. Combat Coffee Company, veteran owned, mission driven, built for those who never quit. Whether you're starting your day or chasing your next goal, Combat Coffee Company keeps you fueled for the mission ahead. Fuel for the mission, one cup at a time. If you've ever felt like you're surviving instead of living, this book is for you. The War Inside isn't about pretending life is easy. It's about understanding the battles we fight in our own minds and finding a way forward. If you're ready to stop living in survival mode and start reclaiming your life, pick up your copy today. The War Inside, available now on Amazon and mw22.org. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome, welcome. All right. So, reading the comments, Tina, sometimes just don't click. You must move on because life is too short. Sometimes it's like that. It is like that sometimes. So, I want to make a distinction here because I think a lot of people confuse two things that actually aren't the same, right? There's understanding what happened, and there's needing the other person to be the one who gives you that understanding. You can spend time making sense of your own story. That's healthy. That's part of the work, right? You making sense of what happened. That's often something a good therapist is going to help you do. What isn't healthy is requiring the person who hurt you to be the source of the understanding, right? The person's never going to give you the answer that's going to be sufficient enough for you, right? Even if the person spoke to you and told you, it isn't going to be enough, right? So that puts your healing on their schedule. And their schedule has already proven itself to be unreliable, probably more than once, right? So you're going to sit there waiting again. So I think part of why we keep negotiating is that some part of us believes that if we just find the right argument, the right words, the right angle, we can go back and change the outcome. You know, like there's a version of that conversation where if we'd only said it differently, they would have responded differently and everything downstream would have turned out differently too. I understand that instinct. I understand that logic. Like I've lived inside that instinct for years, right? But it's built on something that was never true. People don't do what they do because we failed to phrase it correctly. They do what they do because of who they are. And no amount of renegotiating that past is going to change that fact. So here's the question I want you to actually sit with. Not just hear and move past this, but what conversations have you been having with yourself? Maybe for years now, that nobody else on the other end is even participating in anymore. What arguments, conversations, things you've just been having with yourself for years, that the person who hurt you or the reason behind it, like they're not even a part of it. You're just replaying this. Sometimes, Natasha, sometimes we just want the other person to understand our perspective. And when they don't, it feels unresolved. So it becomes cyclical. You got it. Lori, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head with that. Thank you. So What conversations have you been having with yourself for years now that the other person or the person on the other end isn't even participating in anymore? Right? Think about that for just for a real second. I want you to think about that. I mean that take the second to think about that, because some of you already know exactly which one I'm talking about. You might already like that name or whatever it is already there, right? And it just showed up in your chest like, just a little bit when I may have said it out loud. Maybe it's a specific sentence you never got to say. Maybe it's a question you never got answered. And now the person who could have answered it is gone, or gone from your life in a way that makes the answer unreachable, right? Maybe it's an argument that ended mid sentence and never actually finished. So some part of you has been finishing it in your head ever since. Whatever it is, I want you to notice that it's still running quietly, right, in the background, costing you energy you could be spending somewhere else entirely. This shows up in more places than people expect. And I want to name a few of them because different people are going to connect with different ones. And that's exactly how it should work. It shows up in getting, it shows up, for instance, in getting ghosted by somebody who used to tell you everything, who used to be the very person you called with good news or bad news. It shows up in a divorce where you never got the real reason, just the paperwork and the silence that followed. It shows up in a death that came before you were anywhere near ready for it. And now you're negotiating with someone who can't answer you back, no matter how many times you try in your head. Sometimes it shows up in childhood, in things that happened to you before you were even old enough to have any say in any of it. It shows up in a military transition, in a version of your life you thought the uniform was building toward that just never showed up the way you pictured it. It shows up in PTSD, replaying moments that your body still hasn't caught up to the fact that it's actually over. It shows up in a betrayal from somebody who was supposed to be the one safe person in your life. The parent who checked out and never checked back in, no matter how long you sat by the phone waiting. Different people are going to hear a different name attached to that list, and maybe more than one. So let me ask you, which one of these things I just named, which one landed with you? Which one stood out? And you don't have to say it out loud, but if you do, great. I appreciate it. But which one just landed with you? Natasha, trying to justify that I made the right choice in my professional life. I could have had a pension versus starting a business, going the risky route. But you're doing it. You're going to have the negative. You're going to hear that stuff, right? But it's never going to be from people who are doing better than you. No, they would support you. It's always someone who isn't doing what you're doing, right? That they're playing it safe, so they're putting their limitations on you. So, Lord, often I ask myself, why does this affect me the way it does? Is there a way I can identify with this and work on changing it for myself? A big part of that is letting go of wanting or needing to be in control. I know you don't want to hear this, Lori, but that is an ego thing. That is an ego thing. And the moment you kill the ego, then you'll understand that there is no need to constantly have to be in the control of, in the sense that you're thinking. It's letting go of that, only focusing on the things you have control over, which is yourself or how you choose to respond to certain things. So the noticing is the whole point in this, right? Think about the number of people I've talked to who describe the same internal arguments, right? Word for word almost. Except, again, the name attached to it is different every time, right? It could be a friend who stopped answering, a spouse who walked out without a real conversation about why, the father who was in the house but never present. The names change, but the negotiation never does. It's always some version of trying to get the past to finally give you an answer it was never going to give. So here's a practical tool if you want one. This week, write down that unfinished conversation. Just a sentence or two. You don't have to write a whole novel, right? Whatever you say, if they were sitting across from you right now, write that down. Whatever you would say if they were sitting across from you right now. Then I want you to physically fold the paper and put it somewhere out of sight. It could be in a box, a drawer, wherever. You're not deleting it. You're just no longer required to carry it around in your hands every single day. So, a lot of times I'll have some of the veterans in our groups do this on the nights where it gets loud, and it helps more than you'd expect from something so simple, right? You write it down, fold it up, put it away. You've taken it out of here. You've had that conversation, you put it away. You don't have to carry it every night, right? So here's what I want you to walk away from this segment holding on to. Like you deserve peace, even if the story never gets the fair ending. You don't need the apology to close the book on it. You don't need the explanation to finally make sense of it. No matter how badly a part of you might want it, you're allowed to close it yourself on your own terms, in your time, even if it feels incomplete when you do. And that last part is important. So let me say it again differently. Closing the book yourself doesn't mean pretending the book had a happy ending. It just means you stop standing at the last page waiting for somebody else to come write it for you. You can close an unfinished story. People do it every day. It's not dishonest, it's survival, and eventually it becomes something better than survival. That's not you giving up on the truth of what actually happened to you. That's you refusing to just keep paying rent month after month, year after year on a conversation that ended a long time ago. Whether or not you ever got to say everything you needed to say to close it out properly the way you deserve to. Deborah, replying to Miss Tasha, I wanted to tell you I was in your shoes. As a veteran after the Army, I also bought my aunt and uncle's business, and I have been very, very successful. Also, not to get a pension. Thank God for my VA, however. Paid off. It's been in my family 58 years. You have to take risks sometimes to get better. Plus, my father told me I was a fool if I didn't work for myself versus always working for somebody else when I had that potential. And I'm sure you have it as well. You got this. That is awesome, Deborah. That is awesome. So let's talk about the part that usually turns into a greeting card, the happy feel good stuff, right? Full of the soft words that feel nice for about a few minutes, right? I'm not going to do that to you tonight, right? Because you didn't come here for a greeting card hallmark moment, right? You came here for something that you can use on that random Tuesday, Friday night, whenever, when everything gets hard again. So let's start with what peace isn't, because I think that that's actually clearer and more useful than jumping straight to what peace is. Peace isn't forgetting what happened to you. Anybody who tells you healing means forgetting hasn't been paying close attention to what actually healing looks like up close, right? Peace isn't pretending it didn't hurt either, because it hurt. It hurt a lot. It isn't about pretending otherwise. Pretending otherwise is just going to bury it, right? It's going to bury it somewhere where it's going to come back later. And usually when it comes back, what happens? It comes back at a worse time, in a worse way, in the worst timing you ever expected and ever chose. And peace definitely isn't telling yourself that what happened to you did not matter. It mattered. It's allowed, it's allowed to have mattered, like deeply, permanently, that matters, right? And still not be the same thing that runs your entire life anymore. So let me add one more thing that peace isn't, because I hear this one from a lot of people who feel guilty for even wanting peace in the first place. Peace isn't a betrayal of whoever you lost or whatever you lost. Some of you have this quiet fear that if you actually let yourself feel okay again, then it means what happened didn't matter that much, or it means you're dishonoring somebody's memory or letting somebody off the hook. Like maybe some of you have lost a friend or a loved one, something, and you're not allowing yourself that peace or to move forward or be happy for a moment because you feel like, for whatever reason, like, no, I don't deserve to be happy. No, if I'm happy, then I'm forgetting about them or I'm dishonoring and all that. No, it doesn't mean any of that. You can hold both. You can honor what happened and still choose to live your life fully. Those two things were never actually a competition with each other, right? Even though grief will convince you at times that they are. So, what is it then? If it's none of that, I think peace is a lot more practical. And it's really a lot less of a mystery. It's a lot less mystical, right? And people tend to make it sound when they're on stage somewhere. Peace is keeping the small promises you make to yourself that nobody else is watching for, and nobody would even notice if you quietly broke them. Peace is sleeping through the night again without your body treating every creak in the house like a threat you have to respond to or be at full alert. Peace is laughing at something and not immediately checking whether you're allowed to laugh or feel that good yet, whether it's too soon. It's trusting somebody new, even though the last person who had that trust burned it to the ground on their way out the door. Peace is making plans more than a week out again, actually believing deep down you'll be around in a good place to see it through. Peace is loving somebody without quietly measuring it against everything that got taken from you the last time you loved somebody. So I want to name something a lot of people feel, but never say it out loud because it sounds wrong. Sometimes part of us is scared to actually let go of the waiting because the waiting has become familiar. It has its own kind of identity. If you spent years being the person who's still hurting over this, still fighting for an answer, still holding somebody accountable in your own mind every single day, then letting go of that can feel like you're losing a piece of who you are. Even though what you're actually losing is a piece of who you were forced to become. And that's worth sitting with for a moment. You're not just letting go of the waiting. You're letting go of a version of yourself that got really good at surviving with this particular pain. That version of you did its job. It kept you alive through something very difficult, but it doesn't have to keep doing that job forever. And that version of you on the other side of this, that doesn't need it anymore. None of that, none of that's going to require the other person to do anything at all either, ever, right? None of it requires an apology, an explanation, or even the basic acknowledgement that anything happened in the first place. That's the whole point of this entire segment. Peace built on somebody else's cooperation was never going to be stable, because you can't build something solid on a foundation you don't control, right? No matter how good your intentions are or how hard you try. So I want you to notice something about that list. You know, the sleeping, the laughing, the trusting, the planning, the loving, every single one of those things, it is available to you right now, today, this moment, regardless of what the other person ever does. Not eventually, not once you get the apology, right now. That's not a motivational language. That's just truth. That's just facts. The door was never actually locked from the outside. It only felt that way. And we can add more to that list, right? Because I think it matters. Things that don't really get talked much about, right? Peace is also being able to talk about what happened to you without it hijacking the whole room every single time, right? It's being able to say, yeah, that happened to me, in a normal tone, right? In a regular conversation, without that becoming the main event, without you, like, that's not minimizing it. That's you no longer being controlled by it. It's the real difference between having a scar and an open wound. And a lot of what we're talking about tonight is the process of letting something finally become a scar instead of staying an open wound. Okay? So here's the question I want to leave you with from this segment. And I want you to actually let it sit for a second before rushing past it. What would your life look like if you stopped asking people to become someone they've already shown you clearly and repeatedly they're not? What would your life look like if you stopped asking people to become someone they've already shown you clearly and repeatedly that they're not? So, I know earlier I told you to write fill in the blank. So I want you to finish one more sentence for yourself. You don't need to write this. It's just something I want you to think about and answer on your own. Peace is blank. Peace is blank. Not what you think peace should sound like. Not what it sounds like coming from me either. Whatever word actually shows up first in your head, peace is, let that sit there. Hold on to that, right? It could end up being more useful to you tonight than anything else I say. So here's something else practical I want you to take home tonight. It's 3 questions that I want you asking yourself every single morning going forward, not just tonight. What can I actually control today? Not the whole situation, not the other person's move, just today. Number 2, because going back to number 1, like, just focus on what's sitting in front of you. Because some mornings it's going to be a short list, and that's fine. Short list is still real, and that deserves, like, it's still real. Focus on that. Number 2, what deserves my energy today? Because energy is limited, whether we admit it or not. And most of us spend like we spend energy like it's an unlimited resource, handing it out to people in situations that gave us nothing back, and you'll never get that energy, right? And what deserves to be released today? Not forever necessarily, just today. I'm not asking you to solve the whole thing in one morning, just for today. Like, sit down for a few hours, ask yourself those 3 questions. It's 3 questions, maybe 30 seconds of your morning, right? You can ask yourself while you're brushing your teeth or drinking your coffee, right? Before your phone starts buzzing and your day gets loud and takes everything from you, right? You can do this before you even get out of bed. Do that consistently for a month. Promise you, you will feel the weight shift underneath you. And I'm not telling you it'll disappear completely because I'll make promises I can't keep. I'm telling you though, it shifts. And shift is exactly where the healing is going to start. Every single time for everybody I've ever watched go through this, including myself. So hold on to those 3 questions. So if I could print something out right now and put it directly in your hands on the way out the door, I think here's what I would tell you, what I would say. Permission to stop carrying somebody else's mistakes like they're your own to carry around the rest of your life. Right? I wish I could physically hand every single one of you a permission slip, and that's what it would look like. You have permission to stop carrying somebody else's mistakes like they're your own to carry around the rest of your life. You have permission to stop proving your worth to people who never earned the right to question it in the first place. You have permission to stop waiting, period, full stop, starting tonight, right? But I know I can't actually hand you that slip. And the reason why is because I think this needs to be said, even though you already know it. You already have it. You've had it the entire time. This whole time you've been waiting. Nobody was ever going to hand it to you because it was never theirs to give you in the first place. It's yours. It's been sitting in your hands this entire time, even while you were looking around the room for somebody else to hand it to you. We grew up believing that permission had to come from the outside, from the parent, from a partner, from an institution, somebody with more authority in the situation than we felt like we had. And a lot of us were wired that way, right? We, especially like in the military, where permission genuinely did come from somebody above you. That wiring doesn't just switch off when you take the uniform off or when you leave the job or you leave the relationship. It follows you into your next one, to your next grief, into everything. So I want to clear something up that trips a lot of us is there's a real difference between moving on and moving forward. Moving on sounds like erasing it, actually like it didn't happen, acting like it didn't happen, like the person or the events got deleted. No, moving forward is different. Moving forward means the event stays a part of your story. It happened, it's real, it shaped you, and you keep walking anyway with it. You're carrying it differently, lighter. So my hope for you tonight is simple, even if actually living it out day to day. Stop waiting for closure that may never come packaged in the way you've been picturing it in your head. Stop waiting for an apology that may never arrive. Laugh again. Plan a future again. I want everyone here tonight to understand that you don't need the permission. You've had it all this time, okay? Right now, in this room, believing all this because it's all within you, okay? I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. I feel like we could have kept going another hour, right? I want you to remember who you are. Remember who you are, okay? You have the power this whole time, right? Your healing already started. This is the small decisions you make. So to everyone who's joining me tonight, thank you so much for being a part of this. Please, if you have questions, leave them there. And hopefully I will see you guys again next week. Hope you have a blessed night. Reach out. Remember, we are stronger together and no one should face anything alone. You guys have a good night.